Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to the Bourse Report. Well, unless you're living under a rock, you would know that today is Budget Day in our sweet Twin Isle Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, all eyes and ears will be glued to their televisions, their radios, etc., to listen to what measures will be proposed or announced today, this afternoon, later by the Honourable Minister of Finance. Last week, we took a look at the revenue measures that would have been announced in prior budgets and what could be upcoming in today's budget. Today, we're taking a look at the trickier and perhaps stickier side of the budget equation. We're talking, of course, about that expenditure side and what could be done, if anything, to arrest that certainly very significant expenditure bill at the government or state level. Now, as you can see in terms of historical trends, when we talk about sticky, it's certainly been a fairly predictable story to some extent over the past 5 fiscal years. Total expenditure would have averaged just around that $50 billion mark over the fiscal 2016 to fiscal 2020 period, as we can see in blue, with just over 90% of that total expenditure coming in the form of recurrent expenditure or current expenditure, and we can see that has meant current expenditure in excess of that $45 to $46 billion level over the past multiple fiscal periods. For the 9 months of 2021, very little has changed when compared to the 9 months of 2020. Total expenditures in that $33 to $35 billion odd level, which would suggest that total expenditure for the now concluded fiscal 2021 period is going to come in at very close to, if not almost exactly on that $50 billion level. Now, when we take a look at how our money is spent, we can see that the majority of expenditure, certainly between 55 to 57%, really goes towards spending in what is deemed transfers and subsidies, which again makes up roughly 50% to 3/5 of the total spending by the state. The other major expenditures avenue would be wages and salaries, including and otherwise spending on public goods and services, as well as interest payments and capital expenditure at a much lesser expense. So certainly, transfer and subsidies, the big elephant in the room in terms of where and what, if anything, could be affected or adjusted in terms of cuts or helping to arrest that certainly elevated level of expenditure relative to our national revenues, which again is currently in the $35 to $37 billion range. So certainly we have been spending way more than we have been earning over the past couple of fiscal years. Speaking of, that has led to multiple fiscal deficits over the past couple of fiscal periods. In fact, over the past 5 fiscal periods from fiscal 2016 to fiscal 2020, we have incurred a fiscal deficit, meaning we've been spending more than we've been earning on average of just around $9.5 billion every year from fiscal 2016 to fiscal 2020. And for fiscal 2021, which is now concluded, that number is in the range, or would have been estimated to be in the range of just around $8.2 billion. So certainly a very significant number on average. And that would have been funded in part by some combination of borrowing, drawdowns from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, and asset sales in varying combinations over the past couple of fiscal years. So certainly a very tricky equation to try to balance in the coming fiscal period and certainly subsequent fiscal periods. What are some of the expenditure initiatives? Well, on the revenue side, much was made of the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority, as well as the incoming implementation of the property tax, as well as some privatizations possible or already in the pipeline. On the expenditure side, one of the major areas, of course, would be a reduction or potential reduction of transfers and subsidies. And in the last fiscal budget, mention was made of reviews to water and electricity tariffs. And that progress has been slow, but is certainly continues to be mentioned in the media from time to time. So work appears to be underway in those areas, as well as fuel market. Let me get this right, liberalization. Of course, where floating fuel prices are expected to move, or would have been announced to move to a floating price regime back in January of 2021. Of course, for those of us who do fill our gasoline and diesel, we would know that that has not taken place as yet. So look out potentially for some announcement with respect to fuel prices today, perhaps. Now, in terms of what could be taken, what measures could be taken and their impact on the fiscal equation. Well, transfers and subsidies, wages and salaries, and interest payments would have a higher impact in terms of curbing just how much is spent on an annual basis. Transfers and subsidies certainly would have the higher, would have more flexibility to reduce wages and salaries and interest payments, much less so. Goods and services, there is a lower impact overall to expenditure, but there is some higher flexibility to reduce. So certainly on the balance of things, there should be more focus, or there is likely to be more focus on this particular segment here. We're talking, of course, about the transfers and subsidies part of total expenditure. Now, can everything be fixed in this fiscal 2021-2022 budget? Well, the answer is most likely no, because it would bring across very significant convulsions to the economic equation for businesses and citizens alike. But will the fiscal 2022 budget be a step in the right direction to achieving some sort of fiscal parity? Well, we certainly hope so, and we wish the Honourable Minister of Finance well in today's delivery of the fiscal 2022 budget. Well, that's it for this week's edition. For more information, give us a call at 226-8773, email us at invest@boursefinancial.com, or check out our website at bourseinvestment.com. And of course, you can catch us in today's business section of the Bigger, Better Trinidad Guardian newspaper. Stay safe, keep yourself vaccinated, grab some popcorn. It's probably going to be fun later this afternoon, and see you next week on the Bourse Report.